Good morning,
Good,
Pastor Mike.
good morning,
Welcome.
Pastor Matt. Yes, good morning.
Welcome to another live Q&A virtual lobby. The title doesn't get any shorter than that. Uh, but this time, every Sunday is set up just for us to be live together, to interact together, connect with each
All
other,
right.
just like we would in the lobby of our church, right? And so
Yep.
instead of walking around or standing around and using the coffee that the church provides, we have our own
We have
cups of
our own.
coffee here.
Right.
Yes. And okay, awesome. Ramon has his what is that, Ramon, this morning?
It's half of it is coffee, or 1/4 of it was coffee. Now it's just water now, so I'm watering it down. So I'm
Nice.
I
Well,
only
we
get
do.
water at the pantry.
There you go. We do
How
have
many
two
weeks have you been
special.
doing this already? The virtual
Um,
lobby.
This is for the Q&A or for the food pantry.
No, for the just the lobby, virtual
The
lobby.
lobby.
I think
This is week 8, I believe.
week 8 already. Wow. Wow.
So here's the deal. If you are joining us on Facebook or YouTube, I'm here on YouTube. I see my aunt said, "Good morning, Pastor Mike, Pastor Matt, Miss Nat. Good
Mm-hmm.
morning to you." And if
We
you're
have
on Facebook with us, P. Mike, what
yeah
you
we
got
have
there?
yeah we have Fred from the U.S. and we have
Fred.
Vida. Yeah, we have them, and also Doc Bong Guloy joined us, watching us. Hello, everyone.
So let
Good
us know
morning.
you're here with us. Let us know where you're watching from and who maybe you're watching with, or if you want to just say hello, you can do that. We're going to introduce our special guests. Many of you know
Yeah.
these two. Some of you maybe don't. And so today you're going to get to know these two special friends of ours. And so sitting next to me, I'll start with the one sitting next to me. This is my amazing wife, Natalie. And she's joining us today because she's been heading up the food pantry, and they're going to talk more about that in a few minutes here. And then P. Mike, can you introduce
Yes,
our
of
other
course.
friends?
We have Ramon, who's also part of the COVID relief team, and he's one of the team leads for the distribution. So thank you guys for joining us this morning in our live Q&A. Wow, I'm really excited. What's with the things that we'll be hearing this morning about what's happening in our church.
Yes. Well, Ramon, before but we're going to ask you guys a few questions this morning and get to know a little bit about your stories and also how God has used you with our food pantry specifically these last 11, 12 weeks or so since we launched the food pantry. But I do have to say this, Ramon. I love the look. I love the look of your hair. It just gets me every time. It just looks really good. Looks good on you. You wear it much better than I have to be honest. So
the bald man look.
Yes, it looks nice. Well, anyhow.
It's the lead pastor in our church. It's got that influence on me. So.
Yeah, you had a full head of hair when you first came to Saddleback, right? Well, Ramon, no, you didn't. I remember that. Ramon, how long have you been at Saddleback? Tell us a little about how long you've been with us here.
Almost 2 years.
Almost
2 years. Right.
2 years.
Wow, yeah. That's awesome. And
pretty new.
Yes. And it's amazing how much God's already used you here in our church family, in just the 2 short years that you've been here with us. And you have an amazing wife. Your wife's name is Owen, and your beautiful daughters. What are their names?
Sammy and Zoe.
Sammy and their ages?
Their ages 8 and 3, and they're attending SK.
Awesome.
Right. Hello, Owen.
Yes. Owen, we love Owen.
Yes.
I miss your girls. I miss seeing them walking through the lobby, hanging out in SK.
Breaking
stuff. Nats, Nats, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about
how
myself?
long you been at Saddleback?
All right. I've been going to Saddleback since 1998. I started in Lake Forest, but I grew up here sa Pilipinas.
Ah.
Pinoy. joking. Yeah, we've been in the Philippines for 3 years. My parents are here. I grew up here since I was 4 months old. So I love it here. This is my home.
You're back home.
I'm back home.
Yes, yes. And now you get to share that with all of us, myself and our 3 kids. Talk about your kids real quick.
My kids.
Well, our kids.
Our kids. They're our kids.
They're our kids. Sometimes I say they're your kids, depending on the foods they're in.
If he's mad, they're my kids. We have 3 kids. Our eldest is Kai. He's 14. Our middle is Naomi, and she's 12. And our youngest is Isaac, and he is 9 and a half.
Yes.
Don't forget about the half.
So we have 2 in SSM, which is our student ministries program. They love it. They love student ministries. And by the way, they meet.
Best Zoom ever.
They meet at 1:00 every Sundays. They have their service.
Yes,
right?
they do.
And then SK, Isaac's and SK, just like Sammy and Zoe with Ramon and all that. And they meet at 3:00. They have a 3:00 Zoom every Sunday as well. So if you have kids,
all right,
you're watching, you have kids, our student ministries, they have so many great things happening. And we encourage you to check that out online, on Facebook, on YouTube as well.
It really helps students and kids feel connected to the outside world, because they've been stuck in the house for so long. So
yes. Well, we have Mayette saying, "Hi, Mon. Long time no see, no talk." She said, "Well, you get to see him today, Mayette, Ate, and you get to hear him share a little bit today as well. Keep letting us know that you're here. We want to hear from you this morning."
Yeah, so on Facebook, we have Ate Edith Cortez. We also have Arlie, and Nikki also is with us, watching us right now.
Yes.
Nikki said that, Ate Nats and Kuya Ramon, I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing.
Well, we're a huge fan of you, Nikki.
Yeah, you guys are awesome in repacking. I just saw the video this morning. You guys are.
Yes, that was a special video. Well, speaking of that, if you've already seen our service this weekend, you saw a little highlight, a little video that our central team in the U.S. made, and it's actually every campus is showing that this weekend all around the world, but which is special. A lot of people are going to see that. But if you haven't, make sure you join us at 11 o'clock for 11 o'clock service, and you'll see a little special snippet, just a little snippet of all that God has done through our food pantry and our relief initiatives. Right. And so let's kick it off. P. Mike, why don't you let's ask these guys a couple questions, put them on the hot seat, and let's hear what God's been doing in their lives. Yes.
All right. So let's see. This is the first question. I know that U.S. campus is doing the food pantry, but what really prompted you guys to start it here in the Philippines, this food pantry? Because I know when COVID started, small groups are starting to help in the community, but what really prompted you guys to start this pantry here in the Philippines?
Well, I can answer that. I think, the first few weeks of quarantine, we saw small groups and individuals in our church really just help their neighbors, help their community, partner with their community, partner with their HOAs, and just really help people. At the same time, the longer we were in quarantine, we started hearing more stories from our members of larger communities really being hit hard with not having food. Just, they're, especially the poorer communities, just struggling, a big struggle, because they weren't getting the food they needed yet. And so as we started hearing those stories, the peace team, we kind of got together and go, maybe we need to do something as a whole church, pool our resources together. And then we actually had a small group approach the peace team and say, hey, our churches, our sister churches in, is that how we say sister churches? Other campuses, Saddleback campuses do food pantry. Why can't we do food pantry here in the Philippines? And then that's when we kind of put our heads together and go, okay, what will that look like dito sa Filipinas, right? Because it's hard if, food pantry in itself is people coming to the church to get food. But, the people who need the food the most can't even leave their communities. They have no means. They have no way to get to the church. And so we just put our heads together with a small group, and we came up with, well, let's have our whole church donate food and donate funds, and we will bring it to the communities. We will go ahead and package it in a care kit and bring it to the communities. And that's kind of where it started. And so, Ramon, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, it really started with us, with HOAS and our church members, and how to get the food to them. And then we sort of thought, hey, you know what? Since we're getting all these news, we're getting all these stories from the communities around our villages or around our townships that they need help too, then maybe we can progress. We can do that. We can deliver it to them. And for me, that's how there was a difference between food pantry for members, and then there's a list for non-members, and that's how it grew. So it was just a continuous spiraling outward of help from those we can reach immediately to those who or stones throw away, and then farther away, and that's how it developed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for saying yes to the challenge in a way, but also just saying yes to how God wants to use you to lead the food pantry. And I'd love to hear, just get inside your heart and your head a little bit. What was that like, that initial saying yes, when you realized, oh wow, we're going to open a food pantry. What does this mean? I'd love to hear just that process for you guys, and then maybe what have been some of the challenges, even just as you have been leading this for the last few weeks.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, it was a journey so far. It still is a journey of learning about not just interpersonal relationships within the groups that we have to work with, but also eventually the groups that we are working with outside our influence, outside our church, and outside the township that we operate in. And it has been with its own set of challenges, but just like every weekend or towards the weekend, towards distribution, there's always a unique set of challenges out there, even if we've been doing it for roughly 11 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And on the onset, it's been kind of, it was a rough 2 weeks, and then we moved from something that didn't have any clear system to something that had an actual system, and now it's sort of institutionalized. It's automatic for everyone, and to see that progress, to see everyone who was involved in it grow personally, and to grow also interpersonally. I mean, it's a challenge nowadays because we don't see each other physically, but to thrive despite of that, and to hurdle that barrier, it's just been awesome. It's amazing. So I would say also that not just by our own strength or power, which I always ask for prayers from you guys, from the pastoral team, but it's definitely it's something that's blessed, and I feel that it's God's hand is over what we do.
That's awesome, Ron. Well, I love how you stated how both of you have talked about how it's been a team effort.
Oh, for sure.
There is those who are you're out there on the front lines, you and your teams. I know, but also the church as a whole has stepped in. So many of you watching right now have helped, whether it be prayer. Guys, prayer is powerful. Prayer is needed. Powerful. Whether it be giving of funds online, or giving of food at the food pantry.
Yep.
And then everything else that's involved with it is all important. And so just share a little bit, Nats, about just what are the ways that people have served and can serve at the food pantry moving forward. Just tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes that's happening to get those kits into the hands of people each and every week.
So we are quite a big team, and we have teams within teams. And so, in the beginning, we're trying to figure, at the beginning it was a little bit slow because we're just trying to figure it all out. How do we do this separate, like we're not even together. We can't meet together to and so we have, first of all, we start our week by figuring out, what we need, like what is our budget, what have people donated inside our pantry, what have people donated online, and then from there we figure out, okay, so we need to buy this many kilos of rice, we need to buy this many canned goods, we need to buy this many rice noodles, and we actually have a team, our inventory team, who that's their role. They found suppliers, and that was a process too, just finding suppliers, and so every week their first people team up to bat, as you want to say. So they go ahead and buy the products that we need, the rice that we need, the canned goods that we need, the noodles that we need, and they have it delivered to our church. And so that's our inventory team. Awesome team. And there's a lot of them, and they're constantly looking for new suppliers, new ideas. We now do veggies, and that was one of our inventory teams is coming. Hey, there's a co-op farm that can do packed veggies for us. So we were able to give out veggies. And then from there, it goes to our repacking team, which we have kind of two sets of repacking team. We have the rice repacking team, because that in itself is a job. It's easier to give packaged rice, like 4 kilos already packed, instead of bringing bulk rice. It's just harder for communities to hand it out. And so we have our rice packing team, and usually Wednesday, Thursday, that's when they pack rice, both in the house. And this is everyone. This is SK volunteers, SSM volunteers, music ministry. I mean, everyone is helping repack rice, or helping in some way. And then we have the normal repacking team, making the care kits, putting them in bags, organizing in groups of locations that we send them out to. And then Ramon's team, which is our delivery team, which, Ramon, you want to share what you guys have? Because their team, they do all the legwork, not just at the end handing it out, but they actually meet with the LGUs and go to all the community, the barangays, and you want to explain what you do?
It's leg work and arm work, let me tell you. I was there yesterday, and lifting those kids, I'm a little bit sore today. It shows how weak I am right now, I guess. But Ramon, we'd love to hear about, just real quick, about the delivery process.
Yeah, well, the distribution and delivery team, it's such a huge pressure for us at the start of the week, knowing that we have different groups, different teams, and the pantry is humming with work. It's funny that the physical location of our church is closed, but now everyone's so busy helping out. So we don't want to waste that by just plainly just handing it. So we really take time to just go around and then introduce ourselves to the community, to the leaders, also the different barangay health workers also. And so that's where we get the data. We actually go there and make a visit early in the week, or later in the week, depending on the availability. And then we sort of get an idea, and then I pitch that to the team that, hey, this is what this community is like, and that might be perfect. The packs that we have might be perfect for them, and so it goes. So it ties up everything that has been done. You would say it's a lot of muscle work and a lot of leg work, but really what it is that throughout the week, I would say we have the easiest time, because towards the end of the week it's just handing out, but also it's unnerving work, because I don't want the work of the teams that had happened past few days to just go to waste. And one of the things that we don't let that or allow that to go to waste as well, aside from the care packs getting delivered or handing them to the communities that need them, the individuals, the souls that need them, is to pray for them. So we do that too, and it's aside from the muscle work and everything else, I would say the whole experience for me and the distribution team is just like God's gym for us. Since we're talking about muscle and everything else, there's a lot of leg and physical stuff going on. But God is amazing. God is the God of physical and spiritual, and we're lucky to be in that situation, frontlining for our members, frontlining for our church, to be able to do that and to tie it all together by handing them the care packs and praying for them. And it's I've mentioned this to P Mike and to P Matt and Nat, several times every week, in fact, that everyone should be able to go and experience that. You see it, you see the joy, you see people's lives and the communities that we go to. Sometimes 2 or 3 times we've been going back just to complete the number. You see them embracing not just the care packs now, but also the prayers that go with them, and it's to witness that that sort of change in people. That to us is the culmination, probably the best thing about what we do in feeding the 5,000 effort and in the pantry.
Thank you Ramon, for that. Well, we're out of time, unfortunately. I know there's more to talk about. We're going to be showing some pictures on the screen right now, just so that you can get a little bit of a taste, church family, and you're going to see more in our weekend service here at 11 o'clock service in a couple of minutes. But these pictures are going to be on the screen just as we're talking for these last few seconds together of our teams in action, you guys in action, our volunteers, our church family in action. And so many of you I know watching right now have helped, and I want to say thank you.
Yes, thank you.
As your pastor, say thank you. Yeah, thank you for your heart, your love, your sacrifice, and your generosity. There's a smile. Yes, I love that.
I just want to say, everything counts. Every prayer counts. Every can of sardines count. Every bag of veggies count. Every bag of rice counts. Every hand that scoops up rice to put it in a bag counts. I mean, it's a church-wide effort, and so we are so thankful for you. I mean, Ramon and I, every week we are amazed. It always is more than we expect. The bags, there's always more than we expect, and so thank you guys so much.
Great job, church. Well,
so we call this as Feed the 5,000. Where are we right now? Just a quick mention of the number. Where are we right now in terms of our target of feeding the 5,000?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We are at just a quick run of the numbers. For the families, we are at 4,430 already.
Wow.
And that's huge. Awesome. For the past 10 weeks. And to be able to do this without, there's so many barriers, there's so many limitations. And individuals or the souls that we've actually fed, we're up to 22,150.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing, church. Thank you, Ramon, for that. Thank you, church family. You can still give. You can still contribute. You can give online. You can drop off food at the food pantry every day of the week. Just drop it off downstairs there. Let's make it a goal this week. Let's finish the task this week. Let's get those last 500 plus care kits out to those families this week, church. Let's stack hands together. Well, there's a lot more we can talk about. Thank you guys for joining us. I love seeing the pictures there online on our pages there. If you have a story, let us know your story. You can share your story on our digital bulletin. We have a Share My Story link, and you can type in a story that something maybe you have done, that God has done through you, how maybe you've helped someone, or how you've seen God work in the life of someone else because of the relief efforts we've done, or because of this pandemic that we've been in. We'd love to hear from you because we want to share your story. We want your story to be heard by our church family and by our community. And P. Mike, what else do we have coming up this coming week?
Yeah, next weekend, actually, we'll be having our Father's Day celebration. So please make sure to join us in our Father's Day celebration in one of our services. And also, we have a Father's Day challenge where you'll be sharing your stories, and you can see on the digital bulletin where you can write your story and share with us. And we have some surprises for you guys next weekend.
So share your father's story. Share a story about your father. So maybe an experience. Maybe it's a funny story. Maybe it's just a joke that, an appropriate joke your dad loved to share growing up. Maybe it's just something that happened, something that means a lot to you. You can enter that in the Share My Story link that I just talked about. And next week, we're going to give a prize out to just the most impactful, memorable, creative story at our Q&A next weekend. We're going to be on location next week at a local hotel. And the prize has to do with that hotel. And so submit your stories because you can get a free night or weekend away at a local hotel with your family, your father, your friends, whoever it is. And it could be a great opportunity for you. All right. A lot of exciting things happening this week as well. Make sure you check out all the stuff online in our digital bulletin from our Together Tuesday on Tuesday night, as well as class that's coming up. We have Class 101 happening next Saturday. If you're not yet a member of our church family, we encourage you to sign up and be a part of our, check it out. Maybe consider being a part of our church family. Something Ramon did a couple years ago or so when he took Class 101, and something Nats did back when.
Don't show my age.
Yeah, a long time ago when Nats became a member of our church.
We're due for a review.
There we go. Yes, it's online. It's only 2.5 hours. Normally it's about 4 hours. So it's only 2.5 hours.
Right,
so 101, 201, 301, and 401 happening in the next 2 weeks. So good stuff. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Nats, Ramon, thank you, church family, for joining us. I see Maria's online and some others that are here with us. Thank you for your amazing smiles, church. Thank you for all that you're doing. We love you. We're praying for you. We can't wait to see you again in person, hopefully soon. We don't know yet when we'll be back together at our church, but we're following all that's happening from the government and the authorities, and we just are going to be safe, continue to be safe. That's our number one priority, but we will be together in person. I know it. It's going to happen soon. All right. God bless you guys. That's all I have. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the 11 o'clock service. We love you guys. Have a great weekend and a great week.
Bye-bye.
continue to worship our God and sing this song together. You have come, we have found life everlasting. Now alive to know your freedom, never ending. You alone have made a way for us in your love, 'cause you are life. I'm living in the light of my Savior, dancing in the arms of forever, singing like I'm walking on water, 'cause you are life alive in me. The grayest skies, the living color, you have called us in your life, light uncovered, the world to see now. You alone have made a way for us in your love. You are life, living in the light of my Savior, dancing in the arms of forever. I'm singing like I'm walking on water. You are life alive in me. I give my life to follow, 'cause your love is all I want now. 'Cause you are life, you are life alive in me. Come on, sing this. For all the world to find your love, for all the world to see that you are God, forever be lifted high. The one who holds the universe in every beating heart across the earth. Jesus be lifted high. You are life, living in the light of my Savior, hey, dancing in the arms of forever. I'm singing like I'm walking on water. You are life alive in me. I give my life to follow, 'cause your love is all I want now. You are life, you are life alive in me. Hey.
Hello, brothers and sisters, church family and friends. Welcome to worship weekend here in Saddleback Church. Have we told you lately that we miss you? God bless you wherever you are and however you are. May you feel God's presence in these uncertain times, and may you be sure of His love and commitment to you. God's commitment is demonstrated in how, no matter what the times, good or bad, positive or negative, His plan and His purposes for your life never changes, including in the area of your growth and mine. And so, here in Saddleback Church, we offer this deliberate pathway to growth. These classes that we offer are so that we can continue to know and fulfill God's purposes for your life. Because whether you know it or not, you need a family to live with, you need a foundation to live on, you need a function to live for, a focus to live by, and a force to live in. And all of this you will get to know if you take our classes. And so, for those of you who've been worshiping with us for 14 weeks now and have been wondering, what is God's plan for my life in His family? And what is this church all about? We invite you to take Class 101. We're offering this on June 20th, this coming Saturday at 6:30 p.m. For those of you who've taken Class 101, we invite you to take Class 201 and know what it takes to mature. What is God's part and your part in your spiritual growth so that you can become more like Christ. We're offering this Class 201 on June 27th, 2 Saturdays from now, same time, 6:30 p.m. For those of you who have taken Class 201 and have been growing in your relationship and walk with the Lord, we invite you to take Class 301 and discover for yourself how has God shaped you to serve Him. And for those of you who've taken Class 301 and have been serving God according to your gifts, according to your talents, according to your shape, we invite you to take Class 401 and know what is God's life mission for you. We offer this on July 4th, again, a Saturday, 6:30. And all of these classes, you can register by clicking the link in our digital bulletin. Also, for growth purposes, we are offering Foundations class starting 2 Thursdays from now, June 25 at 5 p.m. Foundations class is a series of studies on the 11 basic truths of the Christian faith so that we all can be grounded, established, and no matter what the situation, good or bad, circumstances, positive or negative, we will be strong, we will be firm, and we will thrive and not just survive. Now, I invite you to watch this video highlighting what we as a church together have accomplished and have worked together the past 14 weeks to offer relief to the vulnerable and most at-risk families. Watch this video. God bless you.
Hello, Saddleback. It is such a privilege to be able to share with you today what God has been doing here at our Santa Rosa, Philippines campus. At the beginning of this pandemic, we launched a food pantry here at our campus. And already over 1,000 man-hours have been given serving at our food pantry. Whether it be shopping for food, or sorting food, or packing care kits, or organizing, or connecting with partner churches in our area, or loading and delivering the food into over 15 different communities in need. Up to this point, our church family here has fed almost 34,000 people. We have witnessed hundreds of people enter into a personal relationship with Jesus as our volunteers pray for and pray with those that are receiving the food and supplies that we give. We ask that you partner and pray with us for the 50 plus frontliners from a local hospital who are currently they're living in our church building. And friends, we ask that you partner with us in prayer, that God will continue to use our campus in amazing ways as we strive to be a beacon of light and of hope in our community during these dark times. We love you, church family, and God bless you.
waves and winds still know his name. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. It is through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rick Warren, pastor of Saddleback Church in California, author of The Purpose-Driven Life, and teacher for the Daily Hope broadcast. And we're in a series that we've been going through on principles for living through a pandemic, a study of the book of James on real faith, the kind of faith that works when life doesn't. And today we're in part 13. So thanks for joining us. Now, we're not broadcasting from my farm outside, as you could tell today, because it's raining outside. So we're actually in my garage. Yes, this is a window that I had put in my garage. It looks pretty nice, but I like to see out on the view. If you haven't downloaded the message notes, go ahead and do that right now, and then we'll get started. You know, those of us who accepted God's forgiveness and salvation by faith in His grace, we're called many things in the Bible. We're called Christians. You're called a Christian. You're called a follower of Jesus. You are a disciple of Jesus. You are saved. You're called a believer. You have been born again into God's family, and you are now a child of God. These are all terms that relate to who you are in Christ. But did you know that Jesus said we're also to be known as peacemakers? Yeah, as peacemakers. One of the synonyms for being a follower of Christ or being a Christian is to be a peacemaker. In the most famous sermon of Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said this in Matthew 5, verse 9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the ones that God will call his children." To be a child of God is to be a peacemaker. To be a peacemaker is to be a child of God. Now, I don't have to tell you how in these tense days, our world desperately needs you to be a peacemaker. Because there's chaos and there's fighting and there's conflict literally going on everywhere. With all the recent injustice and the brutal deaths of our black brothers and sisters, there are real reasons for the protests that are going on against injustice in our system that allows for people to kill black people and not be instantly arrested. You know, somebody in your family was murdered and 2 months later the murderers hadn't even been arrested, you'd be upset too. You know, honestly, if America ignored what's happening in the past few weeks and went on with business as usual without speaking up about this injustice, I would say that the soul of the nation is lost. I don't hear anybody condoning brutality, either by rioters or by officers. But any citizen, including you, has the right to protest injustice without being blamed for anything else and everything else. So, what's the way out of this mess that we're in right now? The chaos, the confusion, the conflict. Well, it's the same answer that's always been the answer. Follow the owner's manual for life. We need to turn to God and we need to turn to his word for direction. Now, as we come to part 13 in this series through the book of James, I keep being astounded at how relevant the topic that James talks about each week in our weekly situation, how relevant it is to what we're going through during this COVID-19 pandemic. And today in James chapter 3, we come to a passage that gives us the secrets of getting along together. It tells us how to live in harmony with each other. It tells us how to have peaceful relationships. It tells us how to be wise in the way that we treat each other. Now, James chapter 3 is an extremely relevant chapter to what's happening in our world right now. Let me read to you James chapter 3, verses 13 to 18, as we look at a faith that plants seeds of peace. A faith that plants seeds of peace. James chapter 3. Verse 13. If you are a truly wise and understanding person, it will be seen in your life by the good deeds that you do out of the humility that always comes from wisdom. Now let me just pause there and point out a couple things. First, God says that the first mark of real wisdom is seen in your relationships. Whether you're wise or whether you're foolish is not what shows up on some test you take at school, but what shows up in how you relate to other people. Wisdom shows up, God says, in relationships. So I don't care how much money you've made in life or how successful you are. If your relationships are strained or they're weak or they're hurting, you're not very wise. The second mark of wisdom is humility. He says, the wisdom that comes from humility. Anytime I act in a prideful way, I'm being foolish. I'm not being wise. Now let me read it again. If you are truly a wise and understanding person, it will be seen in your life by the good deeds you do out of the humility that always comes from wisdom. But if in your heart you are selfish, jealous, or bitter toward others, that's relationship stuff. Selfish, jealous, or bitter toward others, don't think you're wise, because it's a lie. That's never wisdom from God. Instead, it's from the world, that selfishness and that bitterness and that jealousy, the envy. He said, that's from the world, and it's from your unspiritual nature, and it's from the devil himself. Now, I want you to notice The Bible says that if I allow selfishness or jealousy or bitterness in my relationships, that I'm being foolish and unwise, and those things don't come from God. Now then James continues on in verse 16. He says this, for whenever there's envy or selfish ambition, you will always find, this is from the Amplified Translation, confusion, unrest, disharmony, rebellion, and every kind of evil. That's from the Amplified Translation. Anytime you see any of these things in your home or your work or your school or in society, confusion, chaos, conflict, all of the things we just read, he said anytime you see that, it's because envy and selfish ambition have raised their ugly head. Now, fortunately, James then teaches us the secrets of how to be wise, how to be a wise peacemaker in relationships. This is going to be very practical, so I hope you're taking notes today. James chapter 3, verses 17 and 18 says this, real wisdom, that's the wisdom from God, is pure, then peaceful, then considerate. He said, real wisdom is submissive, full of mercy and helpful, and impartial and sincere, or without prejudice and without hypocrisy. You know, when peacemakers plant seeds of peace, the Bible says, they will harvest justice. Now, this last verse, verse 18, it is so loaded with truth. When peacemakers plant seeds of peace, they will harvest justice. That's so filled with truth. We're going to look at it for 2 weeks. I want you to circle the word peace, and I want you to circle the word justice, because they go together. You can't have one without the other. You can't have real peace in the world if you don't have real justice in the world. They go together, peace and justice. You plant seeds of peace, you harvest justice. Now this week, we're going to look at how do you plant the seeds of peace in your relationships. And then next week, we're going to look at how do you harvest justice. Now again, James says this, when peacemakers plant seeds of peace, they will harvest justice. Every day and in every relationship that you have, you are planting seeds in those relationships every day of your life. The only question is, what kind of seeds are you planting? What are you sowing into your relationship? Are you sowing seeds of anger? Sowing seeds of distrust? Are you planting seeds of impatience or fear? Are you always planting seeds of criticism or nagging or anything else? Whatever seeds I sow, I will reap. And that's where whether you're going to have good relationships or bad ones, peaceful or ones with conflict. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, Rick, I get it. How can I plant seeds of peace? Well, James tells us the answer. And he says it right there in verse 17. And there he gives us 6 seeds. 6 seeds to plant for peaceful relationships. If you're going to be a peacemaker in your home, in your work, in your family, in the world, you're going to have to learn how to plant these 6 things in the relationships that you begin and establish. Now, you know, the reality is we often treat each other in very foolish ways in relationships. In fact, we often relate in unwise and even self-defeating ways. A lot of the ways that you act toward people actually provoke the exact opposite behavior of what you want. So let's look at these 6 seeds of peace individually right now. You might even just consider them to be a checklist. It's a checklist on how to have good relationships, how to plant seeds of peace. And he says all of this comes from wisdom. If I get the wisdom of God, and if I'm wise, he said wisdom does this, 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 and this. And he gives us 6 seeds of peace to plant. Why don't you write these down? Number 1. You want to be a peacemaker in all your relationships? Number 1. If I'm wise, I won't compromise the truth. If I'm wise, I won't compromise the truth. Because in James 3:17, the first thing it says is, real wisdom is first of all pure. Real wisdom is pure. Now, what is James talking about? He's talking about always telling the truth, the pure truth of God. Proverbs 15:26 says, the Lord delights in pure words, words that are truthful, not words that are dishonest, not words that are false, not words that are lies. To be a peacemaker, the very first thing I have to do is I have to must be wise. And the way I must be wise is I have to always tell you the truth. If I'm wise in a relationship, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cheat you. I'm not going to trick you. I'm not going to try to take advantage of you. I'm not going to try to deliberately deceive you. I'm not going to try to mislead you. I will, first of all, tell you the truth. Words that are pure, wisdom that is pure. Why do you think God mentions this first? I'll tell you why. Because all relationships are built on trust. And all trust is built on truth. There is no trust without truth. You can't have trust without truth. And so in order to build a relationship, you have to have trust. In order to have trust, you have to have truth. So the first thing you have to do is you have to tell the truth. Honesty is the bedrock of all good relationships. This is what he means, is that wisdom is pure. It is truthful. It's honest. It's real. It has integrity. You probably don't know who Dr. Leonard Keeler is, but you know what he invented. He invented the lie detector. And Dr. Keeler, after testing over 25,000 people on the lie detector, you know what he concluded? He concluded this: every human being is by nature dishonest. We are naturally dishonest. God doesn't want us to stay that way. That's why in Ephesians 4:15 he says in the Message, God wants us to grow up to know the whole truth and to tell it in love. He wants us to know the truth, and he wants us to tell the truth, and he wants us to tell the truth in love. If I'm wise, I'm not going to compromise the truth. Number two, wise, peaceful relationships. Number two, if I'm wise, I won't antagonize your anger. I won't antagonize your anger. I won't compromise the truth, but I also won't antagonize your anger by the way I tell it. Second phrase in James 3:17 says this: real wisdom is peaceful. It's not just pure, it's peaceful. What does that mean? Wise people work at maintaining peace. They work at maintaining harmony. They're not always looking for a fight. They don't get offended easily. Do you? Do you get offended easily? They're not defensive all the time. They're not carrying a chip on their shoulder. You know, repeatedly, over and over and over, God says that if I'm wise, I will avoid arguments. Why? Because I'm not going to antagonize your anger. Because true wisdom, if I'm wise in our relationship, I avoid arguments. I avoid antagonizing your anger. Proverbs 20, verse 3, any fool can start an argument. The wise thing is to stay out of them. Mark of wisdom, you stay out of arguments. Proverbs 14:29, a wise man controls his temper. He knows that anger causes mistakes. All kinds of mistakes. So, okay, I get it. If I'm going to be wise in relationships, I'm going to avoid arguments. I'm going to avoid antagonizing anger. What causes arguments? Well, there's a long list of things that cause arguments. Let me just mention three that you need to avoid. Three things that cause arguments in any relationship, marriage, friendship, or anything else. Number one, comparing. The moment you start comparing, you're asking for an argument. Why can't you be like so-and-so? Or you're just like so-and-so. Comparing always causes arguments. Condemning. You know, it's all your fault. Or you should be ashamed of yourself. You lay on guilt. Or you use phrases like, you ought to, you should, you shouldn't, you always, you never. Don't compare and don't condemn. Number three, don't contradict. Contradicting causes us to get into arguments. What is contradicting? When you interrupt in the middle of a sentence to correct a detail. That's irritating. Let me give you some advice. When you're in the middle of an argument, don't sweat the small stuff. If somebody gets a detail wrong, don't worry about it. William James, a famous psychologist, said, wisdom is the art of knowing what to overlook. Okay, you got to know when, don't make a big deal. If your spouse keeps getting the detail wrong, don't correct them every time they get the detail wrong. You don't want to compromise the truth, but you don't want to antagonize their anger either. Number 3, if I'm wise and I'm going to plant seeds of peace, I won't compromise the truth, antagonize your anger. I won't minimize your feelings. That's the third seed that we plant in this list of 6 seeds. The Bible says real wisdom is considerate. Anytime I'm inconsiderate, I'm a fool, because real wisdom is considerate. Other translations say real wisdom is courteous. Real wisdom is gentle with people. What is he talking about here? Considerate. Considerate simply means being mindful of the feelings of other people. That's all it means, to be considerate. You're mindful of the feelings of other people. You're not just thinking about your feelings, your agenda. You're not just thinking about your goals, your needs, your hurts, your interests. See, one of the most common mistakes that we make in every relationship, in marriage, in friendship, at work, at school, with our neighbors, one of the most common mistakes is, if I don't feel the same way you do, then your feelings must be invalid or illogical or unimportant. Because I don't feel them. I don't have the fears you do. I don't have the concerns you do. Then they must not be important. Thinking about what we're going through right now, the truth is, if you've never been treated unjustly or unfairly in all of your life because of your skin color, okay, if you've never had anybody mistreat you or treat you less than a human because of your skin color, and if you've never been afraid of being shot for jogging down a street, then you're probably having a hard time understanding what people are protesting about, because it's not in your world. But because it's not in your world doesn't mean it's not real, and it doesn't mean it's not legitimate, and it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. I'd like to read you something that I wrote this week that maybe will help you be a little bit more of this third seed, the seed of consideration. I wrote it. It's called Yes, But What About? Yes, But What About? Let me read it to you. One of the reasons so many marriages end in disaster and so many kids are estranged from parents and so many citizens are fractured in angry divisions is because most people have never been taught how to sit with someone's pain without getting defensive about it. How to sit with somebody's pain without getting defensive about it. And it causes all kinds of problems. When somebody tries to express how fearful or heartbroken or angry they are about some deep, painful wound, the most unloving thing and the most unhelpful phrase you can reply with is this phrase: yes, but what about? Yes, but what about? When they're in pain and you say that, yes, but what about? You see, you invalidate people's feelings and their pain by immediately mentioning some other problem or some other pain or some other unfairness or some other injustice. Is that really your best response? No. I mean, could you not just sit for a minute and validate their pain? You may not feel it, but you didn't experience it. But could you not just sit for a minute and validate their pain without being defensive? Must you immediately excuse it away? Must you compare it to somebody else's problem or pain? What about that? What about that? Can you not just be empathetic for a few seconds? You ought to ask yourself, why am I always so quick to change the subject when somebody expresses a negative emotion or a hurt? Why am I so quick to change the subject when somebody expresses a negative emotion or a hurt? You see, they aren't saying their pain is the only pain. They're not saying that their problem is the only problem in the world. They're not saying that the injustice done to them or the injustice done to others doesn't matter because of what's been done to them. They just want somebody to understand and sympathize their pain. Anytime you respond to a hurt or a fear or a pain with yes, but what about, and you mentioned something else, you communicate this. Somebody else's pain is more important than yours right now. Or I can ignore your problem because other people have problems too. Now this phrase, yes, but what about, is particularly misused on social media by many, many people, and they don't realize how hurtful it is. For instance, somebody will post something where they'll express a concern about something that hurts them personally. And immediately 50 other people will minimize that hurt by posting, but what about all the babies who are aborted? Or what about the people who are dying in that country? Or what about, and everybody talks. Nobody listens. That's foolish. It's not wise. Wisdom is considerate. You know, when you're considering the alternatives for something, when you're looking for solutions, when you're trying to discover unintended consequences of a decision you're about to make, the phrase, but what about, that's a very valuable tool. Anytime you're trying to find a solution or an unintended consequence or figure out what might happen, but what about, that's a valuable tool. But as a response to somebody expressing grief, it sucks. All right? It reveals your inability to empathize. It means you're unloving. And it means you're not being wise at that moment. Why don't you try this? This week, when you see somebody express a negative emotion, instead of getting offended or getting defensive or minimizing it or changing the subject, just absorb their pain for the moment. Okay? Just absorb the pain. That's called love. It's also called maturity. It's what Jesus does. He does it with you all the time. So when somebody brings up a painful hurt, don't immediately try to equalize it out. Don't compare. Don't equate. Don't rush to a solution. Just listen. If you want to be a pro at loving people, you need to realize that your ear is a far better tool for showing kindness and love than your mouth. Okay? You just show up and you shut up when other people are in pain. You don't try to say anything. You show up and shut up when they're in pain. And maybe, just maybe, they'll do the same for you. It could save your marriage. It could save your family. It could save our nation. Romans 15:1-3 says this, "We who are strong ought to bear with the failings of the weak and not please ourselves. Each of us should please his neighbor for his good, to build him up. For even Christ did not please himself. But as it's written, the insults of those who insulted you fell on me." You know what? That may happen sometimes in your life. The insults of those who insulted others fall on you. And all of a sudden you get insulted. And you go, well, what did I do? Can you just be like Jesus and realize that sometimes the insults of those who insulted others fell on you? All right? Be Christ-like in that. Galatians 6:2 says, "Carry each other's burdens. And in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ." What's the law of Christ? Love your neighbor as yourself. All right, let's review. If you really want to be a peacemaker in the world, blessed are the peacemakers. They will be called the children of God. Peacemakers are wise in their relationships. And if I'm wise, I won't compromise the truth. tell you the truth. I won't antagonize your anger, and I won't minimize your feelings. I'll just listen to them without being defensive or out trying to give you a solution. Number 4, the next thing James says is this: if I'm wise in a relationship, I won't criticize your suggestions. Oh man, could we save a lot of problems if we would just do this one? The Bible says, the 4th thing, real wisdom is not defensive. Real wisdom is not defensive. Now, the Greek word here, eupithes, it's only used one time in the entire Bible, right here in this verse, James 3:17. Eupithes literally just means you're open. You're open. The RSV translation says you're open to reason. You're not defensive. Living Bible says it allows discussion and is willing to yield to others. King James Version says it's easily entreated. What does it mean to be eupithes? To not be defensive? It means you're reasonable. You're open to discussion. You're willing to be persuaded. A wise person can learn from anybody. Now, a fool is shut down. You're stubborn. You're closed-minded. Nobody can teach you anything. But a wise person can learn from anybody because you're willing to listen. You're not set in your own ways. You're not set in your own biases. As I said, you're not stubborn. That's wisdom. You're willing to listen and you're willing to learn. And you are a learner, and all learners are leaders. Oh, how this is needed in our world today. Nobody is listening to anybody else. This political party isn't listening to this political party, and this rabid channel on TV isn't listening to this rabid channel. They're all just talking at each other. They're not reasonable. They're not eupithes. They're not open. They're defensive. Are you a reasonable person? Let me ask you, can your kids reason with you? Can your wife reason with you? Can your husband reason with you? Are you one of those people that says, don't confuse me with the facts, my mind's made up? No, if you're going to be wise in relationships, if you're going to be a peacemaker, you've got to be open to reason. I heard about a new pastor, young guy just graduated from seminary. He went to his first church, and he was very nervous to preach his very first sermon. So he told everybody, I know I'm not very experienced at this. I haven't had much experience preaching. So I tell you what, I would like your suggestions because I just want to get better. And so I'm open to any advice that you have. Well, at the end of the service, he's standing at the front shaking hands with people as they're leaving. And a man walks up to him and said, Pastor, I just want you to know your sermon stunk. Your sermon stunk. Well, that's not very constructive criticism, but he's trying to be open about it. He goes, well, okay, so it stunk. What specifically stunk? And the man said, well, there were 3 problems with your sermon. He said, first, you read it. Okay. Second, you read it poorly. And third, it wasn't worth reading in the first place. The guy was feeling pretty bad after that, but another member came up later, felt sorry for him, and said, don't worry, Pastor, don't pay attention to old Jim. He only repeats what he hears everybody else say. Now, being open means you're not defensive. You don't take everything personally. You don't get offended so easily. Proverbs 12:15, a fool thinks he needs no advice, but a wise man listens to others. Okay? You want to be a peacemaker in your home? You want to be a peacemaker at work? You want to be a peacemaker between races and in the world? Well, to be wise in relationships, I won't compromise the truth. I won't antagonize your anger. I won't minimize your feeling. I won't criticize your suggestions. Number 5, if I'm wise, here's the next one, I won't emphasize your mistakes. If I'm wise in a relationship, I won't emphasize your mistakes. I'll just cover them up. I'll pass over them. James 3:17, the next phrase says, real wisdom, God's wisdom, is full of mercy and it's helpful. It's full of mercy. It's forgiving. It's gracious. And it's helpful. Are you quick to point out everything that's wrong in the world? Are you quick to point out what's wrong with everything in your home or at your work or in your church? Do you jump on every mistake and error? Do you feel duty bound that you have to remind people what didn't work? Are you picky about everything? Do you bring up the past and go over and over and over and get historical about it and keep bringing up all the failures? You see, mercy, the Bible says, is a mark of wisdom. Mercy is giving people what they need, not what they deserve. When somebody stumbles, you don't judge them. You encourage them. Mercy is treating people the way God treats you. Proverbs 17 verse 9 says this in the Living Bible, love forgets mistakes. Nagging about them parts the best of friends. Love forgets mistakes. That's what it's wise to do in a relationship, to forget mistakes. I remember hearing the story about one time a woman reminded the wife of Billy Graham, Ruth Graham, reminded Ruth of one of the big mistakes that her husband, Billy Graham, had made. And Ruth was quiet for a minute, and then she replied, and she said, oh, you know, I distinctly remember choosing to forget that. I distinctly remember choosing to forget that. What are you choosing to forget out of love, out of mercy, out of wisdom? Emphasizing mistakes is not helpful, but mercy is helpful. Proverbs 15 verse 4, kind words bring life, but cruel words crush your spirit. So let me just be real in your face about this. What do you need to stop bringing up with that person in that relationship? You need to let it go. You just need to stop bringing it up. You see, if I'm wise, I won't do these things, and I'm not going to hang on to your mistakes. No, there's one more. The sixth thing. This is the sixth seed of peace to plant in all your relationships. Number 6. If I'm wise, I won't despise our differences. If I'm wise, I won't despise our differences. Now, this is a big one, because one of the biggest sources of conflict in marriage and every other relationship is that we want and we expect other people to think like we do, to feel like we do, to act like we do, to have the same reasons and motivations we do. We want them to have the same priorities we do. We want them to have the same outlook we do. We want them to have the same perspective we do. We want them to judge everything the same way we do. What's the problem here? We don't want them to be who God made them to be. We want them to be who we want them to be. And that's a formula for conflict. It's a formula for unhappiness. And it's a formula for disaster. Now, the antidote is simply to wisely admit our own biases, our own judgments, our own prejudices. And that's why the last seed of peace that James recommends that you plant for peaceful relationships and to be a peacemaker in the world is this, James 3:17. Real wisdom is free from prejudice and hypocrisy. That's today's English version. Real wisdom is free from prejudice and hypocrisy. If I'm hypocritical or if I'm prejudicial, at that point I'm a fool. I'm not being wise. I'm the opposite. Now, it's interesting, this phrase, free from prejudice and hypocrisy, in the original Greek, these two words are very, very similar, and they go together, actually even sound a lot alike. In Greek, they are the words adiakritos and anipokritos. Adiakritos and anipokritos means free from prejudice or bias and free from hypocrisy. Wouldn't that be helpful if we were all that wise? Free from prejudice and free from hypocrisy? You know, anipokritos, you can hear the word hypocrite in there. Anipokritos means not a hypocrite. You know, that's a Greek word. Hypocrite's a Greek word. In Greek theater, thousands of years ago, one actor would often play many parts in a theater. And he would come out on stage wearing one mask, and he would play that particular character, and then he'd go backstage and switch masks and come out and play another character. And then he'd go backstage and switch masks, and he'd come out and play another character. And he would wear multiple masks throughout the story. And he was called the Hypokritos because he always wore a mask. He was a hypocrite. He was always pretending. He was all wearing a mask. Wise people, the Bible says, are anipokritos, which means free from prejudice. What does that mean? They don't despise differences. They celebrate differences. Just because somebody's different from you doesn't make it bad. Everything that's different isn't demonic. It's just different. And wise people see God's wisdom in making us all different. We think different, we look different, we talk different, we have different values and priorities, we have different skills. If we all like to do the same thing, a lot will get left undone in the world. The first mark of this part of being a wise peacemaker is your adiakritos. You're free from prejudice. Why don't you ask God to help you become free from prejudice this week? And you say, well, I'm not a racist. I didn't say you were. You're not a racist. But everybody has prejudices. Everybody has prejudices. Everybody has biases. You can't be a human being and not have a bias. You see things a certain way, which are different from the other ways people see things, which is why there's conflict. But God says, I love all the differences. And he says, I want you to be free from prejudice. And then the second thing he says that wise people are real about, he said they're genuine. They're anipokritos. They're authentic. They're honest. They don't fake it. They're not hypocrites. He says it's dumb to pretend that you're somebody you're not. It's even more dumb. It's even more foolish to pretend you're perfect. That's foolish. Why? Because everybody already knows you aren't perfect. I mean, who do you think you're fooling? You're not fooling God. You're not fooling everybody else. People actually appreciate honesty more than they do trying to pretend like you've got it all together. And when you're honest with other people, when you're adiakritos and anipokritos, when you're free of prejudice, hypocrisy, and you're open and honest about your own faults, it makes them more open too. So here's my homework for you this week. Talk to somebody different from you this week. Somebody of a different culture, a different age, a different religion, a different race, and become wiser. Don't try to solve anything. Just listen and learn and love. Use your ear, not your mouth. Now, of these 6 different seeds of peace, how do you rate on James' wisdom test? You say, well, not so good. I need more wisdom. Well, yeah, we all do. Okay? We all need more wisdom. That's the starting point, and admit that you need it. Until you admit it, you can't get any more. How do you get more wisdom? Here's the secret. Get to know God and get to know his word. Get to know God and get to know his word. The more you know God and the more you know his word, the wiser you're going to be, the more seeds of peace you'll plant, the more fulfilling and successful your relationships will be. How do I get that wisdom? Well, first step 1, get to know Jesus Christ. Look at this verse, the last verse on your outline, Colossians chapter 2, verse 3. From the Bible, it says this. The secret to what? Wisdom. The secret to wisdom is Christ himself. In him lie all God's hidden treasures of wisdom. The secret to wisdom is not a principle. It's a person. It's Jesus Christ. And whatever you need, wherever you need wisdom, he's got all you need. And if you want peace in your relationships and you want peace in the world, the starting point is to invite the Prince of Peace, that's Jesus Christ, into your life. If you haven't done that, I want to invite you to do it right now. It's the starting point on the path to wisdom. It's the starting point of harmony and peace in relationships. If you've had bad relationships all your life, this is a starting point. Start getting the wisdom of God in your life by inviting Christ into your life. Every service at Saddleback, we end by recommitting our lives to Jesus. I'm going to do that right now, and I invite you to follow me in this prayer, okay? So just bow your head and say this. Dear God, I need your wisdom. Just say that. Dear God, I need your wisdom. I make a mess of my relationships. Just say it. I make a mess of my relationship. And I'm going to keep making a mess unless you help me. I need your wisdom. I want to be a peacemaker, not a troublemaker. I want to plant these seeds of peace. But to do that, I need your wisdom. And to get your wisdom, Jesus, I need to get to know you. I'd like to get to know you. I'm opening the door of my life to you right now. I'm saying, come on in. Make yourself at home in my heart and in my mind. I want to build a friendship with you. I want to learn to trust you and love you and follow your direction. I want to know your purpose for my life, why I was made. So as much as I know how, Jesus Christ, I say yes to you. And I want to follow you from this day forward. Please save me and accept me into your family. I pray this humbly in your name. Amen.
God, in these troubled times, just worship you and surrender all of these things as you raise a hallelujah. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemy. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me.
I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear our praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. I raise a hallelujah with everything inside of me. I raise a hallelujah. I will watch the darkness flee. I raise a hallelujah in the middle of the mystery. I raise a hallelujah. Let's do this together. Fear you lost your hold on me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear our praises roar. Out from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive.
Let's sing this together with one voice. Sing a little louder.